I think that responsibility does rest on two people when you're engaging in sex, or however many people are actually involved. The problem I have is how quickly this entire discourse was able to say that women were not only supposed to be taking responsibility for themselves within sex, but also the stealther, any past trauma they've had, the behaviors of the good men and the bad men. It completely fell apart in the middle of it, and it fell into the patriarchal framing around rape from our past. That rape is bad if it's a property crime or the woman is one of ours. That rape is natural, men push boundaries. That rape is something women are responsible for, but men cannot be held responsible for bad people, which is true, but not the freaking point. Neither can women be held responsible for that. So once again, we found another controversial consent topic that immediately, almost instantly, fell into, well, let's have women do one more thing. And immediately put responsibility on somebody else because it's an uncomfortable situation. And I don't think we really have prepared men to have these uncomfortable conversations, especially now that the world is opening up to the point where we can see that men are also victims of sexual assault and that they need a way to come forward. So we are not prepping ourselves properly for the discourse, and I want that to change.
Okay.
What's up, guys? It's Will, and this is my channel. My last video featured a talk I had with Kevin Castely, one of the more prominent hawks on the Twitch platform. Today, I'm presenting to you something that I think is going to be a really nice contrast to that talk. This is my full interview that I had with Savannah, who really impressed me when she was on the Destiny Consent Debate panel on PrimeCayes a few months ago. I wanted to poke her brain about consent in relation to this video I made highlighting some of my criticisms of Hanz's takes, but also ultimately critiquing Destiny's impenetrably bad rhetoric. We ended up having a conversation that flowed really naturally around a wide variety of topics, ranging from consent, men's rights, and even the commodification of women's self-defense. Ultimately, I left the conversation with some really interesting realizations that I think are relevant to almost all men and women in my audience. Quick housekeeping, I just launched a Patreon. Tier lists, Discord roles, the whole deal. And for the price of one roll of film a month, you can really help support me and this channel. If you follow me on Twitch, you may have noticed that I've been doing a lot of content surrounding the gang stalking phenomenon. That is because I'm working on a feature-length documentary about the subject, so stay tuned for more info about that. Links to all of the above and more are available on my channel and also in the description below. Now, without further ado, Savannah of Destiny Debate fame. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good. Okay, that's better. Let me see here. Does my audio sound okay?
Yep, your audio is good. I hear you.
Does you sound good as well?
Awesome. I finally have a headset, so.
Nice. Did you have that for that panel that you were on?
I did. I finally had, but I got it so that I can listen to calls and stuff while I'm playing video games and be able to mute the back so that they can't hear when I'm clicking away.
Oh, for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a way to get me. Pretty new to this Discord thing.
I'm pretty new to all of this. When they were saying we can launch your stream up bigger, I was like, I don't have one though. I don't.
Yeah, while I'm getting some of this goofy tech stuff, set up, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? I basically know you just from that panel. That's why I hit you up. I just thought you handled yourself super well on that panel, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Honestly, pretty much all the women on that panel I thought did really well. Yeah, my opinion about the Destiny thing is that his stuff that he says is just super problematic. I think whatever kind of ounce of goodness you can kind of take from whatever he might say or whatever ounce of truth there might be, I feel like it doesn't, honestly, he kind of, whatever he says, just it kind of dissolves any goodness part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so,
and he's all defensive because it's not his fault that there are bad people who are his followers who take what he says to further really bad ideas. It's not his fault. I don't know why anybody would think that. So he's right to be defensive about that 100%. And it's also wrong to ask streamers to handle a cultural issue that we've been dealing with since before women could vote. Since before we were allowed to have necklines, like this was scandalous. It was supposed to be like right up here. You know?
For
So
sure.
like it's not his fault at all. And I can't stand how the bandwagon starts. And I'm going to give you a narrative today that I really think has got to be pushed back on really hard. But it's not the responsibility of the streamers. They're not bad people. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. And so I feel for Destiny. I do. But at the same time, like, I don't think you have a right to be like that, especially when you're using something super duper rare. And then we tell you something super duper rare that has some women going, oh, am I going to get killed if I talk about stealthing the condom? And he's like, that doesn't apply. Well, casual sex doesn't either, because according to the fucking FBI, it never happens. There's like 4 or 5 cases a year of that, of what he was talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just really stupid, really dumb. But my name's Savannah. I'm a single mom of 2. My son turns 16 tomorrow.
Oh.
So after this call, I'm going to be doing nothing but cleaning up and getting ready because he has a computer coming in for his birthday.
Exciting.
I know. The whole family got together to help me with that. So I'm a military veteran, 9 years total, everything combined. And I'm a military sexual trauma survivor. Mine was multiple people. I fought the government with it. The guy who started most of this, he committed suicide. But he got to 53 women after me.
Holy
53
moly.
That we know of. And if they had listened to me, I was probably the 5th or 6th. But if they'd listened to me, he wouldn't have gotten 53 women. And I started fighting the case in 2005, and I went all the way through to 2012, and I got a win for myself and 6,600 other women in the military. And then I turned around, and this November, the thing we had originally asked for, which was civilian oversight for UCMJ cases that went all the way up.
May I ask what a
That
UCMJ
happened.
case is? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Uniform Code of Military Justice. So if
Gotcha.
it's a felony rape, then it's its own UCMJ thing.
Because military court, it acts a little different than...
Yes.
Got you.
Yes. And we asked for civilian oversight for all sexual cases that go up that high when there's evidence of a cover-up, which is what we had asked for this entire time. And we finally got it this last November. So huge win. Everybody's clapping. Everybody's cheering. But this is my fight. This fight about consent is what I will always dive into, even though I don't have a stream. I'm an old mommy, and I quilt.
You
for fun.
quilt?
Yeah, here, I'll show you. Hold on.
I love quilting. I work for a church, so like we have a quilters club, you know, so...
That's awesome. I'll show you mine. And I will destroy everything. Hooray. Today is just a day of disaster, I swear to God.
You know, it's... Yeah. It might be Friday, but it's my Monday. Oh, I love it.
So I'm hand sewing that last bit. I'm hand sewing that because it's a legacy quilt. It's a Civil War quilt. Supposedly that Julia made for Grant. Julia made for Ulysses Grant. And
when you say it's a legacy quilt, you mean like you acquired an old one that you're like refurbishing, or is it a pattern, or what do you mean?
It's a pattern. It's a Civil War pattern from the actual era. So
that's really cool.
I'm remaking it. They gave some modern ways to make quilts, which wastes way more fabric than they used to waste back then, but shortens labor time. So I'm making that for my son. That's his birthday present from me. So yeah, that's what I do for my fun times. I do not stream. I mod Olake's Discord, and I mod his YouTube, and that's it. Nothing else.
You mod Olake's Discord. That's funny. I like literally, that's what a coincidence. I literally just started following that guy like maybe 2 weeks ago because I was in a pop-up panel with him.
Yeah, no, he's really fun. He's a really cool guy. So yeah, I mod for his channel, and I mod for his Discord, and other than that, I don't really do much except, you know, nerd video game things.
So how did you end up on a panel with like, I mean, everyone else there, as far as I know, were pretty prominent streamers. I know Katie's pretty prominent. Destiny's obviously probably one of the largest streamers in the entire world. How did you find yourself onto that panel? That's pretty cool.
I pissed off some of Destiny's mega fans that Destiny doesn't really claim. And then on top of it, I know CTV, and I pissed off CTV.
Oh.
In one of the panels. And we're both veterans, so we started talking shit to each other like veterans. He goes, I know this one. This is a vet. This one's mine. So CTV and I started arguing. And so he knows me, and he wanted me to come on because my tweets were causing fury and anger for the Destiny take. And I was like, calm the hell down. Whatever. Like, calm down. And so I pissed off a lot of people I guess I wasn't supposed to piss off. And that's how I ended up there. PrimeCayes and Twitch Debates notified me. I was like, Twitch Debates, I'll have this argument with you because I think you're missing something. And if you really want a panel, I don't think that civilian women should be required to like tell their trauma. They don't have the same, structures that we have in the military to report and to be protected. And it's still dangerous in the military to report. So I can't imagine what a civilian woman is going through, especially if she still has to work with the man. If it's a partner she had kids with and now they're barely friends, I know that it's really difficult for them to go through this. So I already went through this and I fought the government, so I'll have this fight. I'm ready for it. So, yeah, but that's how I ended up there, which surprised and shocked the ever-loving crap out of me. Oh my God.
Say one more time.
Oh, that just surprised and shocked the living crap out of me that I ended up on that panel. I was like, I'm never scared of anything, but I was very nervous for sure.
Yeah,
that scared me.
I mean, that's pretty funny. I mean, I thought you did super great. Like when I was like trying to search you through the interwebs, I thought it was funny that I wasn't finding anything, and then I found your Twitter, obviously, and then I read all your tweets, which I would say I probably agree with 90% of them.
A lot of them are just too mean though, because I'm just
cool.
Done with the one.
Twitter's for trolls in a way, It's what I'd say meaningful discourse on Twitter is probably like 1 out of every 5 tweets, if that, depending on who you follow.
My greatest accomplishment as a nobody is I got another nobody to start using the words gendered pronouns, because I trolled him for a whole week to show all the pronouns in the Bible and to say that the Bible was evil because he said pronouns were evil. So I taught him what a pronoun was. And now he uses the words gendered pronouns because I smacked him hard enough. That's my biggest accomplishment on Twitter.
Okay, just for me, because I'm
teaching
confused.
a man a pronoun.
What's a gendered pronoun? A pronoun is he, him, she, they, obviously. What's a gendered pronoun? What's his goofy definition in his head of that?
Like he doesn't want us to say that we are she, her. He doesn't want us.
Oh, is he a gender abolitionist?
No, he's a pastor.
Oh.
And I was like, so we should all use they if you don't want anyone to use pronouns, because they might not be the gender you view them to be. And he was like, no, that's not what I mean. I was like, so you're a gender abolitionist? And he's like, no, that's not what I mean. And I was just like, okay.
Yeah, people are confused. I like I said, I work in a church. I'm familiar with the clergy. It's been quite a change these past 5 years. Honestly, just even in my church, with all the changes been going on, for the better. Obviously.
Yeah, there's a lot of them who are leading the way in human decency, which they should. The Bible is freaking. I'm an atheist, but I love the Bible. Jesus is my favorite historical character ever.
Me too.
So like that's the happy way. That's the the nice way. They're supposed to lead the way on all the nice stuff.
Do you think Jesus existed?
Yes, absolutely. I think Jesus, I think, is based on the story of like possibly up to 6, but even Barabbas in the story in the Gospels, his name was Jesus as well. It means the son.
Oh, interesting. So wait, so do you think there maybe were multiple, or do you think there's still just one Jesus?
I think the one that isn't really what we know as Jesus is the revolutionary one, the one that was actually executed by Rome as a revolutionary, the one who like threw over the table with the money changers in the house, and the one that was rabble rousing. I think that's the one that's disconnected from the stories that we know. The stories that we know, the rabbi that was doing them actually spread it around that if you're a beautiful city and there are homeless people outside of your city, you're displaying the internal weakness of your city. you're displaying what you've done and that you're not as beautiful or as powerful as you think you are. And those are the verses we all love. That's the awesome guy.
True.
And the revolutionary one's a hottie, but that's the really awesome one.
No, I feel that. Yeah, I work for a Methodist church, so I mean, we're pretty much in that book of Luke, 24/7. It's very much the, do good Jesus for sure. less of the rowdy Jesus, but we do get in a rowdy Jesus occasionally.
Jesus was a badass. If you have to be a badass, be a badass. The rest of the time, be a nice person.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. Are you a what is it? Talk quietly and walk with a giant stick kind of person, or no? Okay, fair enough.
I wish. I really do wish. I pick my battles. I'm not out there. I am telling people to get vaccinated a lot. But other than that, I don't really say anything about the other political stuff. I definitely lean. You could call me a communist. I lean very left, but I'm not huge into that. If things are super, super bad, you'll know when it's time to revolt. And I think we live in a time that things aren't going to get that bad. So
I agree.
The rest of the time, I'll keep my mouth shut and only pick the things that need to be a battle, like this right here, like consent.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, let's get into it then.
Gotcha.
Out of curiosity, did you watch my video? Not required reading.
I did.
At all.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. What are your thoughts on that?
I appreciate, by the way, I want to say right off the bat, I appreciate what you said about Hanz. Like, Destiny should have remembered his name. Destiny should have just figured it out, because he's running everything all at once, and how cruel and rude and horrible that was for Hanz.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of hopeful that Hanz saw your video, because he's done this new arc where he's going to say, I'm just going to play video games and talk to people about culture. The rest of the time, I will only be tweeting on politics, not streaming about it for now. And I think that it's a good choice for him, because the way he was humiliated and eviscerated, and the fact that he had to have all the strength to survive what men and women alike were telling this man, is shameful and was humiliating to me. It hurt me so bad to watch him go through that.
Yeah, and similarly how you were like, I don't think civilian women should have to go through describing the thing, right? I'm also of the opinion, similarly to how I don't think black people should be the people that need to teach all of us white people all the stuff. I don't really think people that suffer sexual assault necessarily should be the people that have to defend themselves against types of these things. Yeah. That was just really hard to watch, and you could just really tell that he obviously really cared about the subject because it personally affected him. Yeah.
And it's not his realm. And then he added, and I do mean it's his realm. I mean, the politics and the toxicity is not Hanz's realm at all. And he keeps getting pulled into toxicity. And so that was not his realm. And then he was emotional about something that has happened to him. And just watching how men and women dropped the ball, because here's the thing. Power for women, here's men, right? And here's women. Reporting and telling our stories, here's women, and men aren't on in my screen. I want to make sure my hand is out of the screen. We have to change consent, and we have to change the discourse about this, because men can't even report. Terry Crews got more. And I don't care what you think of Terry Crews. I'm not a huge fan of his, but he was telling the truth. He came forward, and Terry Crews got more death threats in 24 hours than Rose McGowan got in a year. Something's wrong. If men can be sexually assaulted, why the F are we threatening men for coming forward or demeaning them in that way? And I felt so bad for Hanz. I made sure I made it to every single one of his streams to say, hugs, you've got this, because that just hurt my heart so bad. He's a good dude. He's just not very good in the toxic debate bro space,
Yeah. At least for this specific one, I'd say, because I do really appreciate a lot of his takes and just where they come from, because I really appreciate that they're very raw. They're very raw and emotional takes, which I really like, and that's what really drew me to him in the very beginning, almost maybe 6 to 8 months ago, when he was doing all that Demon Mama stuff. I don't know if you're familiar. But yeah. But not to delve specifically on Hanz too much, but I do. The one thing that I just think, because really interesting that you bring up we should create a space, for men to be able to come forward more. I completely agree. I tried in my video to, I am a cis white male, so that is kind of my only lens that I know 100% certainty through, but I tried to make it because I think that it's on both sides for sure. Like, we need to be able to come together in this moment and just realize that men and women, whatever you want to call it, we need to work together to get this done. Yeah. So something that I dislike about Hans's take is just that I feel like, I think it almost needs to be twofold. I think that we don't just need to be like every single person, like we don't need to put all the responsibility on each individual that's going out and participating in casual sex. Also, I'll just preface this by saying I think I'm only going to talk about this in the context of casual sex, because I think that maybe that just narrows it down enough. I think that because there are probably many different, and like, you can get raped while you're on a date with a significant other, you know, like boundaries could be crossed, you know, at any time, right? In almost in any kind of relationship, you know, you could even be married and it could happen, right? But so I figure if we just keep it to casual sex, it's a bit easier to talk about. Is that fair?
That's fair. And that is a rarity, and we're acknowledging that that's more rare.
The rape during casual sex? Yeah, no, yes. For sure, exactly.
Far more rare than...
See, that's the other thing that kind of kills me about this conversation, right? Is that it's a lot of talk, and then at the end of the day, it's like, even if we were to fix this problem, let's say we narrowed it down and we just solved all the casual sex rape problems, it doesn't really matter, because it's still not the majority of them, you know? Like,
the thing is, if we can't seize the beast that is rape and underage marriage and grooming people and online predation of children, we can't fix that giant thing on our own. But one of the reasons we can is because the people who are doing these horrible crimes are using you and me and our anger at each other to hide as a shield behind, well, how can we know? Well, what was she saying? Well, is she being moral enough? And that's the bad guys. The bad guys are using that. None of us believe this shit. None of us. And we've got to step up. And if we can use the very rare one with casual sex to say, okay, here's how we discuss consent. Here's what men need to know. Here's what women need to know. If we can do that for this little one, then it's just one more Jenga block out of the tower that's been built by the actual predators of our world that can get you just as easily as me.
True. Okay, so here's another question maybe. Is there perhaps, you're a mother, that's kind of one of the other big reasons I wanted to have you on too, right? I think that that's a really cool perspective, because my big thing that I was trying to get across was I want to create something that is teachable, you know? Because I'm of the opinion that I think that there, like you were saying, right, there's like predation in the world. There's some percentage of it that we will just never, ever, ever be able to get rid of. It's just the evil in the world. I don't, you know, there's sickos that exist, mental illness. You're never a non-zero chance, right? But what could we do to teach? What would be the best way to teach consent, I guess, going forward to greater society that would minimize the amount of sexual assault? Is guess what I'm trying to get at. Something that I could teach my kids even, you know, going forward when I have kids eventually. What do you think is maybe the best way to teach? If let's say you're the, you know, the czar of the entire world, what do you think you're going to teach the world? What are your prescriptions to try to, I guess, get to as close to zero rape as possible? But things you can actually teach people, you know?
I was very raw coming out of the military when I had my son. So I think that this happened accidentally, but then when I saw that it made him understand consent, I started to infiltrate it into everything I taught him. And the first thing first was I taught my son a deep position of consent. I didn't have a daughter yet. I didn't know that's what I was teaching him, but I didn't want anybody to surprise him, to play pranks on him that were inappropriate or anything like that. I didn't want hazing. I didn't want any of the things that can lead to cruelty. And what would happen is he was a very fast potty trainer. And when he would ask for help, because I needed to move the heavy stool, you know, because they have to climb up on it so it can't move, so it's not very light. When I'd have to move the stool over and roll it over to the sink for him to wash his hands, he would go, "Mama, I'm ready." And so I would go up to the door and I would knock on it and say, "May I come in?" And he would say yes. And then I'd move the stool for him to wash his hands and we go, you know, be buddies all day. best 2.5 years is when it was just him and me and buddies, man. It was so cool. But so he would wash his hands and then we'd go get a snack or something. And I started to put that into everything, partly because of my paranoia. And I'm sure some of it was unhealthy. But then he started to get this understanding of consent. He bit his sister's finger about 1.5 years after I had potty trained him that way. And I was like, well, why are you crying then? Because I know you knew that was wrong. And he goes, because I know how it feels when she bites my finger. And I was mad and I forgot that her finger feels just like mine. And it started clicking for me that we have to teach our sons consent. And how do I say, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm vastly anti-draft. I want it spread to everybody, or I want it gone 100%, because that's what I started to see. Society does not teach our sons consent, because how can a boy who understands consent grow up to be a man who will go to war for the profit of the wealthy? How will a boy who understands consent let a priest take advantage of him without standing up and saying something? I'm not saying avoid the altercation or the horrible instance. I'm not saying a child could possibly do that and take responsibility for themselves. I'm saying if he understands consent, it's not going to stay a 65-year-old secret that nearly tore the Christian world apart.
Well, yeah. Something, if I may interject.
He's never going to do it.
I think that men, I guess I can't speak for women, I guess. I can only speak for men. I think that men are more apt to, like, follow line, like, follow a leader. Like, if you're, like, weak-willed, like, a lot of men will just, like, hold toe behind, like, one alpha male, essentially. You know, I notice this a lot, just in settings and things like that. And in a way, like, when you are just like that, you're kind of almost giving up your kind of, like, consent to do whatever you want, because you're just going to do whatever this other guy tells you to do. Like, I don't know.
Well, and I've noticed among the liberals, not so much the left, but I've noticed among liberal males, kind of centrist, etc., I've noticed that even if they're leaders themselves, a lot of times it's not because they need someone to follow. It's because this figurehead is doing so much good that I agree, and I agree with most of it, that let's keep going forward in this because the needs of the many outweigh what I could bring to them. And I'll just talk about this with people and see if I can, gather people to work on this issue. And I think that's where a lot of the non-toxic MRAs started gathering. And it's this idea that a lot of men, it's something society doesn't even understand. A lot of men are not self-serving. A huge central majority of men go, this guy is doing good. Yeah, he hasn't helped my bottom line all the time, but look at the good for the people. I'm going to go ahead and side with this guy. And they'll follow that guy. So it's not just that weak-willed. I know there are some who are, but it's also the ones who are looking to do the best you can while you can. So I
think what I said was probably mean. I think what you said is way more accurate. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I know that there are weak-willed people, which is why we have to hold leaders accountable. Like that's the whole leaders accountable portion of everything. Is the weak-willed can do better if they have a good leader who makes mistakes, but mostly helps the world. So yeah, like if we drop the weak-willed argument, we have to drop the hold leaders accountable argument. And that's a huge problem with our society as it is. But yeah, I think most of us are decent human beings. I think if you walk into a grocery store and there are 50 people inside and 25 of them are men and 25 of them are women, you're going to go for a week and not run into a rapist, not run into a mugger, not run into, a horrible person who wishes you harm. It's going to take a week for you to even be near one.
I would also agree.
We can't let them do it. They're holding us hostage. The one that we don't meet for a whole week, they're holding all the rest of us hostage.
Yeah, one of the things I always think, one of my favorite history teachers when I was growing up, he'll be like, there's this many people in the world, right? And this many people, they're dictated by this many people. Like this many people create all the laws that all of these people need to obey. And
our top abusers are up here and down here underneath us. We're all in the center. These are the ones that have been abused so thoroughly that I don't think they're ever going to get out of this. I really don't. And we need to think about humanity and rehabilitation as far as we can and separating them from society if they go to prison in a humane way. Up here are all of the other abusers, and they own all of them.
Yeah, they're the ones that.
Oh my god.
They're the ones that get to just go to their offices every day and continue to take advantage of us. Yeah, I feel that. So
And use the laws to jail innocent men, but not hold guilty ones accountable.
yeah, I feel that. So I get the teaching men from a young age passive, like it's like passive consent, you know, which I can appreciate. You know, that's very interesting. I'm trying to like rack my brain, like when I was a kid, like what, you know, what anything of, you know, anything like that was ever taught to me, you know. And I feel like maybe the only similar thing I can come to think of is kind of like it was in school, you know, not necessarily from my parents. Love my parents to death, you know, but it's a different generation, right? I'm sure you're probably pretty up on new stuff ish, you know what I mean? Like you sound like a pretty up and up mom, you know.
I'm such a boomer to my kids though, because they're 13 and 16, so I'm a boomer.
Whatever, dude. That makes sense. That's whatever. Maybe I just always, when I was a kid, I always affiliated, I guess, with older people. I was always trying to get old quick. So what about like, so that's a decent prescription, I think. In general, while our kids are growing up, men and women, but maybe more particular men, because they have a specific lack of it right now, right? That's why we're making the emphasis right now. It's not because we hate men. It's because there's a specific lack of it right now. So it needs a little extra juice, you know? And maybe we give it, you know, society gives it a little extra juice for like 20 years or something. And then we see the benefits of that going forward.
And I would urge if there's a man who's watching your video later in the future and you're getting upset right now, I want that man to think of this. Why can women survive so many confrontations with the men down here who don't have the power? But when we hit a power structure, the women's rights to vote, you should look it up, but a lot of it started because they were forced to pay life insurance, but there was no legal parameter to pay them the life insurance, and husbands were losing their wives and their children to workhouses and getting evicted, and all of these horrible things were happening while they mourned the loss of a wife. It's why men sided with us to get our right to vote, starting in about the 1890s. So
to collect the life insurance payment on our wives? Holy.
No. So the women started saying, I don't want to pay this if you're not going, because a woman fell into a vat. Yeah, in London, a woman fell into a vat of lye. And the first one that started like 3 days of riot and protest, they wouldn't pay the life insurance policy. So people in the town, people in the shanty towns that they were living in and in the worker housing, they started hiding the kids because the father wasn't able to work enough to keep his kids out. Obviously, he's beside himself. His wife drowned in a vat of lye, like probably one of the worst deaths you can think of.
Yeah.
And his children were being hidden by people to not go to the workhouse, and they ended up in the workhouse anyway. So everybody became livid, and the women started telling their employers, I'm not paying the life insurance if you can't ensure that if I die, my children won't stay out of the workhouse and my husband will not be working himself to death. What is the point of me paying this? And there was no legal structure for women to get paid the life insurance policy. And the corporation said, no, we're going to keep taking this payment out. You probably won't die anyway.
That's crazy.
And that caused like a blow up among the working class, because you cannot expect a father to never sleep and work his ass off and hide his children with his friends to keep them out of a workhouse. Like, that'll break a man. That'll break anybody. And I hate this unfeeling view of history and men, because men sided with us because no man should have to mourn the loss of his wife while working himself to death and afraid he's going to lose his children to a workhouse. That's not dignity. That's not human rights. That's not men's rights at all.
Yeah.
Like, what father wants to like be like, oh, well, I lost that batch of kids to the workhouse. Oh, well, start again. You can't find me a single man in the entire world that thought that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's not a psycho. I feel you, for
sure.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing with it. They sided with us because of how cruel it is. So when we survive what men down here do with us, it's one problem, and it's massive, and it's horrible. But notice when we women challenge for the vote, challenge for civil rights, challenge to have a credit card or a bank account without a man signing off, or challenge the United States Army like myself and 6,000 other women did, it cannot stand. The institutions cannot stand against us because they have played the middle ground for so long, pretending we didn't exist, that once we're in, they don't have a way to stop us. But look at the ones they're stopping now. They can silence and shame other men to not come forward about what's going on. There were not just as many, but there were assaults I decided to fight because I was called into a mudroom, which also has showers, and it was a man, and he wouldn't talk to anybody, and he was trying to kill himself, and I just sat in that mudroom with him in the really gross water, and we just sat there, and I held on to him, and he started crying, and that's when I knew I couldn't not fight this. I couldn't internalize it. It wasn't just me, that there was somebody else. And when I realized that this man who was bigger than me, stronger than me, because of what I had just been through, I was more afraid of him than he was of me. In fact, I'm the only one he would let sit in the room with him. And if this could happen to this powerful person, then it wasn't me being weak. It was a systemic issue that had to be dealt with. I didn't have all the words for it back then. I was a 19-year-old moron, okay? But I felt intuitively that something was wrong. And that man is the reason I fought and added my name to that case and brought my own version of the case and pushed as hard as I could. Because that man fell to what I did. And he's stronger. Like I don't think that men understand that the institution is hurting them more. Women aren't cannon fodder. Women aren't a wallet for a family. Women are not considered numbers to, be every year, both the Republicans and Democrats do this too in the media. It's a numbers game for how many white men are like this and black men are like that and Hispanic men are. Nobody looks at them as people, and they keep abusing them within that system. And every men's rights activist group that has gotten off the ground will be great for a moment and then completely forget and leave out gay men, or leave out or actually target black men. And it's just such a loser's game. And men need to know consent from childhood, because the institution and the state wants your body. It doesn't care what happens to my body, and that seems like a horrible statement, but it wants to own you. It doesn't want to own me. It wants you to take out your frustration on me if you have to, or me to live some old lady life in the forest or whatever, but it wants to own you. How do you keep the power of a man's labor in any other way but to get him away from the idea of consenting to what he wants to do with his body?
Damn. I mean, shit. Holy shit. I mean, I don't fucking know. That's a crazy question. My mind's a little blown here a little bit. I've never thought about it exactly like that, to be honest. I'm gonna top off my coffee real quick and come back.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
literally 2 seconds. I'll be back.
Okay.
Let me ponder. That's it's an interesting thing to think about.
I'm not trying to be too preachy.
No.
And I know that can be a political statement.
I don't think so at all.
That men are being abused.
I don't think so at all. Here's the thing: if we're gonna sit around and be like, okay, there's a systemic issue, then you need to describe the systemic issue. And I think that you have just touched on it a lot. Here's a bias that I recognize a lot. I'm a man. I watch a lot of content on the internet. Most of the time, it's mostly just men giving me, my content. I only watch 10% female streamers. I don't really know why that is. Maybe I should think about that more and expand. But it's interesting. I've never heard this perspective from a man before, honestly. And it makes me wonder if it's men can't admit that that's what it is too, in a way. Or maybe we just can't see it like that, until it's described in that way. Because I don't disagree with anything that you've just said. But I've been on this planet for 27 years and I've never exactly thought of it like that. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
when I said that lib men, like Democrats and libs, like the happy to vote for Joe Biden side, and instead of voting for not Trump.
Yeah.
So I mean, like your centrist, your general populist. That's what the center is. And a friend of mine, he's also on our Discord. He goes by Dark Master on the Discord, and he was saying that always remember that centrism is the general thought. It's not negotiated right and left have things that they're working with. Centrist is the majority thought. And everything that goes further and further from that is the outlier. So these centrist men, I already said, will sacrifice for themselves, of themselves, for the general good. I'm sure that the vast majority of liberal men who were content to vote for Biden, I'm sure that Biden doesn't represent a freaking thing for most of them. But knowing that he does good for the community, that's what a man's supposed to do, right?
Agreed.
If there is an incoming horde, the man steps there. If there's a ship sinking in the night, women and children first. Here's how crazy how we've enculturated men really is. During the sinking of the Titanic and that whole women and children first thing that a lot of angry men like to point out to, women and children first for what? Because the man who kept them, even autonomous individuals who could even have an opinion, sank below the waves, and you went to go be a starving fucking pauper in an alleyway in New York City. Mind-boggling. Women and children first because, oh, well, you can't have a job. We're not going to pay you enough, and we're definitely not going to feed your children. So go from an okay life on this boat, let your husband die, get in this lifeboat, and then go die off in the streets of New York. Like, stupid. So dumb. Like, because you couldn't have jobs. You didn't vote back then. You didn't, have any power or property. Insanity. And so men were considered disposable even back when their existence and how well they did meant whether women and children had a good life. And we still disposed of them. Men are.
I know you're trying to say. You're trying to say that even back then, men were. If I dare not trying to be inflammatory, but if a woman didn't have a man back then, the woman had a much harder time surviving. And even back then, we still said, okay, women go over here, and the men, we don't need them. Because that was theoretically that when they were the most important to women or society as a whole.
Yep. And we still threw them away like fucking garbage. We still threw men away under the waves of the ocean in World War I. Actually, there's one that's a lot closer, and we're focusing on a really unfair one. And it has to do with bathrooms and segregation for all factories in the South during World War II. And then it also has to do with women being asked to go back home after, pretty much a Boeing. What did they make? They made a B-17 bomber every 17 minutes.
Yes.
Like, I'm not even kidding. 17 minutes apart.
And it was like an all-women workforce, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were asked to go home. And it's wonderful to focus on that. But let's focus on something else really quickly. Single moms after the 70s and 80s, like me, are accused of ruining the nation. But there were more single moms after World War II all over the world than ever in human history before. Even if we adjust for the demographic change and how much more population there was at the time. More widows came from World War II than ever before. What about those single moms? Of course we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that because then we're going to look and see that our men are trash and a woman loses a husband she's deeply in love with, baby on the way that he's never going to meet. And then she just replaces him with somebody who is an amputee that needs her help because he fought too, but now he has a pension and I'll keep your child from another man from starving. Maybe we'll make a family of our own. And then he dies and she's supposed to find another one. Like, you guys are just fucking robots that we can insert into your life. I'm divorced. I cannot replace my ex-husband. I can't. There are things about him that I love for the rest of my life, and there are things about him that I loathe that no other man is going to be. You're not puzzle pieces to fit into, something that we make a picture after we're done. This is ridiculous. I don't know.
I don't know how this turned into a men's rights. I don't know how this turned into a men's rights talk, but this is really, really interesting.
Because when
Damn.
I say teach men, this is what I mean. When I say teach men, I mean men have a right to step up, and they're afraid of losing something else because the powers that be say, well, look what black people took from you, slavery. They didn't take anything from you. Slavery ended. And they're saying, well, look what the women took from you. Fucking nothing. Men make more now than ever before. Men are happier now than they were before. Nothing. We took nothing. Like,
True.
fuck the powers that be. Consent has to start with boys. And then for women, I want to inundating women with consent talks and educating them on how to deal with consent is ridiculous. One thing that propped up that my sisters, my daughter, and I'm sad about that. I did way better in progressive parenting with my son, but I kind of fucked up with my daughter, I think, because all of them, when this was happening and they found out that Nobody Me was on a stream and they all watched it, that was weird. My family watching me on stream.
No way.
Creepy, man. I was like, they were like, oh, this is why I love your voice. And I think I sound like a chipmunk on meth and I will not watch it again. And I was like, they're like, you should watch it again so you can see some of your things. And I'm like, no, that's like cringe. But all of the women in my family, my friends, the people who found out about this, they said, how come nobody mentioned the 2 different ways that you have to use condoms if you're going to be assaulted? And I instantly knew what they meant. If it's at prom, or if you're young and you're, this is a special thing, so you can make the first time special or something, you're told you have to address the stealthing. But if it's unsafe, be careful and stay alive, get away, break up with the asshole, and we'll help you call the police. If it's a stranger, we're told to carry a condom with us in our wallet or in our purse, because if we tell a man who's just lost his mind or whatever, and he's hurting us in a parking lot, again, the rarest form of sexual assault is strangers, okay?
Right.
So this is a very rare thing. But we tell women, if this is happening in a dark place, you need to try to fight. If he overpowers you, which he probably going to, you need to say, please, 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 I don't want to get an STD, or I have an STD, or I don't want to get pregnant. Please, can you use a condom? It's in my purse. I won't move, I swear. He snaps out of it. He's going to go, oh, fuck, what am I doing? And it's the timing that messes him up, and they're more likely to run away. This, I thought, was horrible and unsafe advice to women, but it's true. If you ask somebody for a condom, it not only humanizes you, it can snap a drunk man out of whatever stupor he's in. And he might be a rapist, like a serial rapist and a truly bad guy, but he goes, this is more time than it's worth. I'm already 15 seconds past the time period. I need to get her in the car. I'm out. That's 2 different versions of advice with condoms that completely don't match up with each other. And women have one for every single scenario that we teach them specifically how to deal with stealthing, condoms, etc. And I think one of the reasons is because we've commodified how to be safe from rape. If you type into your Google browser right now, how to reduce likelihood of sexual assault, there's a multi-million-dollar industry for cute little cat claw things for your keychains, because we've all been taught from the day we were like, here, I'll do it with these pencils here. We've all been taught that when you go, if you go in, you're supposed to go like this, and you're supposed to just lace your fingers. We all have it. You see how fast that was? With keys, I just take the ring, put it in my palm, and go like this. I still do that. I'm a war veteran, and I still do that. It's just a habit, because that's what I was taught. It's been commodified to the point where we have these cute little keychains, pink pepper spray. Why?
Yeah, in my opinion, that's just so dumb. Like, you want them to see the pepper spray before you shoot in their face? Like, I don't get that.
Like we've made cute little holsters for tasers. We've made that nobody's buying either. It's because they're going out of style. We have like apps for women. We have special fingernail polish. We have, and it turns colors. And I love that. I am not dissing the people who have invented ways to help women be safe. And so many men have come up with entrepreneurial ways to help us stay safe. But it's also been commodified. How much more advice are we going to add to women before we realize we have a problem with teaching men consent? Like, let's add 8 billion other things. If you go onto Google, I went 3 whole search pages, but each algorithm is different. It took me 3 search pages and about 100 results to find the first thing on what can men do to help reduce sexual assault. And in the article, I think it was a law enforcement area somewhere in the South. They didn't mention how men can reduce sexual assault for themselves. They mentioned how men can stand up and help people who are facing sexual assault. I kid you not, there was not one piece of advice for men who are going through sexual assault. Not one. It was about how they can protect other people from being assaulted. Please explain that to me. If you say how to reduce my risk of sexual assault, and there's no articles on telling men how to reduce the risk of sexual assault. It boggles my mind. I'm laughing because I'm angry. Like, it made me so angry that there's nothing in there on how men can reduce sexual assault. Nothing. Why? As if it can't happen to them. I don't know.
No, I feel you. Why the emphasis on, like, where, why be some kind of hero when the reality is that you're just going to be the victim more likely than the hero. It's, how many guys come across, two people, and someone sexually assaulting someone else, and then they're like, hey, get the fuck out of here. I'm sure that's a rarity. I'm sure people that commit sexual assault usually they're more clever about it, dare I say. Like, they probably try to take advantage of people. I'm not going to continue that thought, but yeah.
No, and I'm not going to say it's more rare than this, but it is very rare. The last one that made it to national headlines was Brock Turner and two men pulling a man off of a woman. They pulled Brock Turner off of her. That's the last one we've heard about, and everything goes viral now. It probably is still happening at the same rate per year. It's just they don't make it to the mainstream media, but like, that was a long freaking time ago. Brock Turner was a long time ago.
True.
And like, those stories usually make it all the way to the top, and it hasn't, because it is very rare. It's happening between people who don't feel like they can come forward. Feminism was so focused on making sure that sex workers knew they could come forward and that we would try to protect them from the ridiculous, patriarchal, punitive police force that we have in America, that we've completely forgotten that here's a young man. I want you to put yourself in a position, because this is what I fear as a mother the most. A young man still under the protection of a guardianship with parents. Something terrible has happened. They want to tell me. They want to say something, but they can't. And they're scrolling through there trying to find some ounce of help. Anything that will help them, at least something. And they're boys, So if he's a boy, he's going to sit there and go, oh, I'm going to see how to make sure it doesn't happen again. I'm going to train, I'm going to be powerful, and I'm going to heal through this. And he's looking through all of these articles, and then he comes across that tells men how to reduce the risk of sexual assault for women, not for other men and not for himself. And then we turn around and we look at suicide rates, and we're blaming suicide rates on everything. But which is the Occam's razor here? Are we seeing these suicide rates amongst boys because they go and look for help because they feel in culture they can't tell me, that they can't talk to me? And then they turn around and they see that article and go, oh, so what happened to me isn't okay. I fucked up. Yeah. This is my fault. And then they give up. Like, that is my biggest fear as a mom, that there's nothing there for men. And everybody wants to get into the, well, maybe she shouldn't be a slut. Well, maybe we should moralize sex. Well, maybe the Puritans were right. Well, maybe this, maybe that, maybe these, maybe those. And the men are completely fucking forgotten. Women's bodies and women taking responsibility for sexual assault in this culture is a granted, and men are disposable fodder we can throw in wars and make wallets for their children.
Fuck.
I don't know how that's human rights. I don't understand how that is human rights. And one day, I guess you and I can talk about child support, because I also loathe child support. But we can do that another time.
Interesting.
But you can't.
That's a topic I've really wanted to get a little more well-read on. It hasn't really affected my life personally yet, thank God. But, so I haven't done too much research, but...
Another reason not to stealth young men.
Yeah.
No child support.
I mean, just the advice I always tell people, just wrap that shit. Just wear a fucking condom.
Yeah.
Wait, when you go out with her for a long time, then work something else out. I don't understand any man's default to have any version of casual sex at all without a condom is insane to me. You don't, with all due respect to women, you don't know, she could have STD or whatever, and you don't want to impregnate somebody. She could say she's on the pill and not. Men, million reason to just wear the fucking condom. They make thin ones too. Like, who gives a shit? Like, Agreed.
Well, and it might be like if you look at articles, if you look at like trying to tell men that something could be wrong with their genital area,
Yes.
like, prostate cancer, they get very, very uncomfortable. Like, oh, but is godhood is not bad. Is no get sick. No, get checked for prostate cancer because it can kill you in a month.
Yeah.
Like,
For real.
we're not saying there's anything wrong with down there. We're saying that what's behind there could be killing you. So yeah, men get really defensive about that whole thing, but to me, they like it so much. Like, take super good care of it. Make sure that there's nothing that goes wrong, that you can be as protected as is humanly possible. And as close as I'll get to agreeing with Destiny is this. When it comes to casual sex, if you, and a lot of people named polyamory, because I'm polyamorous myself, and it doesn't mean what people think it means, but they think that's casual sex, and it's not. I will almost agree with Destiny on this part. If you're in a place where you cannot ask a person for their STD panel results and you trade it to them in return, you're not in a place to not know in that culture that you both have to be safe and wear a condom. Like, you have to at least be able to have that conversation, because if you cannot ask for an STD panel from a partner, condom every time. I don't care how it feels. Like, every single time, get a condom.
I mean, it's a red flag. Why aren't you gonna give it to me? That's kind of strange. I got mine right here. Like.
Yep.
And if that's already the cultural agreement, like that's a huge red flag. Just like how if you go to the bar, and you're trying to go pick up a chick and you get back to her place, like in the chick's perspective too, if the dude doesn't want to wear a condom, holy moly, that's kind of a weird red flag. And then if you're a dude and the chick is like, nah, don't worry about it, don't wear one, I'd be like, see you later. That's weird. Like, I'm out,
Like, oh no, my abuela just called, she is in the hospital.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, I haven't faked things before. I've told a truth that is as close to the date as is humanly possible. Like, oh no, like, my kids were sick and like my mom had them and they're finally well, and I was out, but she's calling me and I gotta go. And I was never there to have sex even. I would just go out with the girls. I hate bars. I quilt. I cannot stand going out. It just annoys the shit out of me. And I try not to be grumpy because a lot of people like it and I'm not judging. I can't handle it. It's like this tension right back here. Like, I can hear everything and my shoulders are like, and I'm like,
I get that. I've been in a long-term relationship with my girlfriend for the past 6 years. So it's been a long time since I've gone to the bar to go pick up chicks. But I feel you, though.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's pretty great. Yeah, I totally get that. I always feel like people are like looking at me, and even like in COVID, I was thinking with COVID, obviously I haven't been to like a packed bar in the past 2 years. Like, what was I thinking? Yeah. Like, being with all those gross people like this, and like there's smoke and shit everywhere and people are spitting at me. Yep. Like, weird times.
Or like, they go like this, they spill their beer and go up, and they go like this, and then they wipe it on the side of their jeans and like down their side, and then they pick up the pool ball and they rub it all over the felt, and you're like
I might have a buddy like that. Might have a buddy like that. Yeah, I agree. That's pretty gross.
And I'm not judging. I can't handle it, so I'm going to stay away from all that. But I've done that before. I've been in a situation where I'm out with my girlfriends. I see somebody. We flirted before. I have this tendency where I'm like, ooh, he's hot. Or, ooh, I like her. And if they open their mouths and they're really fucking stupid, I instantly stop liking them. But this guy is weird because he's always in this playful, nice, he does good things for the community, and he and I, like, where he's in that realm of playfulness and never too inappropriate. But he got inappropriate because he started pushing, and I'm like, my mom is calling. So I got away. I got back home. My mom kept them for the sleepover anyway, so I guess I did lie a little bit. But then I texted him and I was like, yeah, no, I don't think that's a good idea because of this, because of that. And then we're like, let's just do the friends thing. And then we just kind of fell off the radar with each other and don't even talk. And he's another vet. So did I avoid a confrontation? Yes. But Like, I think that you can do those things, and I think we women have been taught to do it. So,
Well, I think that's good. It's good strategy, I think. You know, my idea is I just want strategy to reduce the sexual assaults. I don't even really give a shit, honestly, if you hurt somebody's feelings or like that's not my prerogative. You know, my prerogative is you be safe. You know, do what you gotta do.
yeah.
You know, yeah. I don't really care how a gross dude's feelings are. Like, if you need to get out of there, you know, that's who gives a shit. I
Well,
feel
and
that.
we have to do the whole thing where women need to be told, one, your assaults are being commodified, and be aware of what people are trying to sell you over sexual assault statistics.
That's
we
an
need
interesting
to,
thing. I've never heard of it put
we
like that.
need to have like the economic, political, the socioeconomic, I don't want to say consequences, that's too strong, but the nuance there, the socioeconomic nuance of sexual assault and commodifying women being safe. So we need them to be aware of that. And the second thing we need them to be aware of is, yeah, we heard all of these horror stories, but I've seen so much change in men in just 10 years. If a guy's not leaving you alone and you say something, I am willing to bet the whole fucking bar is going to stand up for you.
True.
Same thing for men. If a man's for the person that's like, I really want this guy to leave me alone. Bars are putting out, give us this code in the bathrooms. And they're saying, give us this code and we can help you. But that needs to be everyone, because what about the men who need to give the code, but they're not putting it in men's bathrooms because of statistics?
Yeah.
And who rapes whom the most? Like, I think that men, if you, Will, were in the bar and some guy was being an asshole to you, or some woman was all over you and like, I just really need somebody to go home with, and you're like, this is a nightmare, and you guys said something, I'm willing to bet the vast majority of the bar is going to side with you.
Oh, totally. You know, the bouncer would probably kick them out. You know, I feel that, honestly.
Yeah.
Or hopefully, you know, something like that. I agree with you. That's true.
We can do it. I think we can do it together. We need the toxic bullshit to stop.
All right, I like where we're going here. So step one, we teach boys consent from a young age, and we just we need to ingrain consent. I guess we need to kind of just make it some way so that men can give consent, because your whole proposition is like, even from birth, the government owns you. I mean, when I turned 18, I signed my little paper, and God forbid World War III kicks around. I mean, my ass will probably get booted over there, you know? Like, which is nuts.
That's a violation of the 19th Amendment. It says, the right to vote shall not be abridged or denied on the basis of sex. Telling all young men between 18 to 26 that they have to register for a draft and can be polled at any time after 26 is disgusting. It's a violation of the Constitution.
Here's a question. Are you, this was posed to me the other day, are you a moral relativist or a moral universalist? And if you don't know what that means, I can explain it, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, a moral universalist is someone that believes that your morals and ethics are stagnant. They're the same throughout time. It's like, for instance, slavery. No matter what time you go through in time, 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years in the future, slavery is always wrong, right? Or you could be a moral relativist, saying that, oh, well, in the 1850s, we didn't know any better, or it was just the culture at the time, right? So slavery perhaps was maybe less wrong back then. But now we know. It's 2022. We have the internet. Slavery is horrible, blah, blah, blah. Where would you maybe fall in there? Would you say maybe you're more universalist or more relativist?
I'm probably closer to universalist, because I would point out how many people were saying slavery is wrong 1,000 years before 1850.
Yeah, Moses.
Yeah, everybody was like, whoa, 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 this is creepy. And so everybody knew. They just chose which side they were going to go with. Now, do I think morals change throughout time? Absolutely. If women are dying at the age of 16 after having 4 children, I can understand why a people would think that keeping them away from war, keeping them in a harem, keeping them like, and I do mean not the harem slaves. I mean, when you were invaded, the king's men would let women and children like come into, the fortress, and a lot of them would stay in the harem and be cared for in the harem. So I understand why you would have that protectionism for women in an era where you didn't realize marrying and impregnating an 11-year-old is going to cause her to die in childbirth at some point with one child or another.
Yeah.
And so I still think it's gross, but when you were like, oh, they're fertile, and since they die early, get as many children out of them as possible. I understand why they wanted to protect them. I don't think it was out of malevolence.
Yeah, I bring this up thinking like, perhaps I think that the draft is immoral. That's my initial my take on it, I guess, at this moment, right? What I was wondering is if maybe, 200 years ago, when America was first starting, the draft obviously had a different importance, I was wondering if maybe if you and I, if we're 200 years in the past in America, maybe we think the draft is, we need it, I wonder. Or if maybe we're both back there and we're still thinking like, nah, I still don't want to be picked up from my village and sent to war,
Celtic, I'm part, okay, so I'm Korean and Irish, so I'm part Celtic, and Celtic women are insane. That was racist. No, they can be insane.
Clip it.
Let me back that off. Okay, so back then, they went as tribes because they did not enjoy that a liege lord could say, oh yeah, I know you have a harvest, but I just got myself in some deep shit because I can't keep my mouth shut, and you owe me this, and it's come fight. And they all went as a tribe to end it so that they could get back to their lives. So yeah, I think a long time ago I would have been exactly the same way, because I don't think that a man's body should be on the line in anything but self-defense. I get that if we had another Hitler and Jews started disappearing, yes, the whole world should rise up, 100%.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to tell me to do it.
World, me. Yeah. You and the government, doesn't the government have a responsibility? And they have a carrot on a stick, and that's the Second Amendment. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary for the securement of a free state. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Right there, do your fucking service and you get a gun, and then the rest of the time go home,
Yep.
But the government has to come up with a good fucking reason to go to war. We just spent $2 trillion privilege of losing a war. Losing. And we made people, not people, but corporations, trillionaires.
Yeah, I mean, my childhood was permanently stained with 9/11 and the Iraq War, I just, yeah, I mean, then 2008, I mean, I was in middle school during that, parents struggled, like that was a crazy time. I will never forget that. It's very interesting.
And
I
you
feel that. Yeah.
My kids were not born outside of a war. Like, they have been at war. This is the first year they will be outside of a war, and we have to wait until September for it to be a year. My son turns 16 tomorrow.
It's very
If that doesn't clobber you, it's disgusting. And we have to understand something. Cut that in half. 1 trillion could have won war, but let's just not go to war at all. Or let's let the military-industrial complex keep that 1 trillion off the backs of taxpayers.
Could we have turned that into a social safety net instead, or some better education?
Yeah.
Maybe
child support.
Yeah.
Investing in our children, not hurting men for child support. Just
yeah. Yeah, my big thing is always education. I feel like anytime I talk about anything, I feel like a robot saying it, but it always ends up boiling down to, I think people are just not educated enough, and it's not even necessarily their fault. I think they're probably ignorant of their, not even, like, they don't even know that they're not educated enough most of the time, And it's just been such a giant failure of our government. Like, our government basically does one thing really well, and I think it's put all of our children in a place so that they can get educated for 8 hours a day. Like, that's something that our government does super, super well. It gets them there, but it doesn't, like, teach them the stuff properly, like, yeah. And honestly, the parents get them there. It's not even the government that really gets them there, It's the parents that get them there, and then they're basically babysitters for 7 hours, like.
You've triggered me from this morning.
Sorry.
Let's get in the car. Oh my god.
That's why I'm gonna wait another couple years. So, teach boys about consent earlier. Decommodify sexual assault for women. That's a crazy thing. I've never thought about that. I'm really just gonna have to simmer on that and maybe get back to you on that, because that's very true though. Like, I'm thinking about just all the goofy shit my girlfriend even has that keeps in her purse, like, I feel that. We didn't do pink pepper spray. I bought the black one. Like, gotta stay safe.
There's something really gross, and it's I think there's going to be a revenge portion of this here shortly. There is an insert that women can use. I don't want to do anything for your channel that can get you in trouble, but there's an insert women can have walking home, and it's only in other countries right now, but it has teeth on it and like these little like hook things in it. And if there's a forcible thing and it's there, he has to go to the emergency room to get it removed, and the police have their guy. And here's what's scary to me. So many people go, yeah, let's do it, because we're so angry at the rape problem. But no woman should have to wear something that could harm her on her way home from the subway. And so you catch one rapist. What about not making them think that's a crime of opportunity they can take part in? What about men how many of these assailants and predators had a horrible life and that we know of it?
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I would argue probably that most rapists and people who commit sexual assault, they're probably either mentally ill, honestly, or they have had some trauma unaddressed that could probably be addressed by therapy and stuff like that. Like when we were discussing the man, right? Let's say that attempts to commit the sexual assault, and you say, hey, put the condom on. And then the man thinks for a second, and he dips. Like, that was a man that I feel like we really could have saved before it even got to that point. You know?
Exactly.
The dude who's just,
maybe he's safe now. Maybe he's okay now when he's like, what the fuck?
Thank God I had someone confront me and straighten me out for the rest of my life, hopefully. You know?
In that moment. And then the others, they'll say, how dare you confront me? You agreed to this and I don't want to wear a condom. Well, that's changed everything.
Yeah.
And if violence to protect your reputation could be an option on the table, we have another one we could have saved a long fucking time ago. And it's just, I don't know, it's just such a freaking nightmare.
I feel you. I feel that. Okay, so we, just because we're on here, the multi-prong thing, right? So do we agree with me about the thing that I brought up in the video? Like, forget Destiny. Do we agree with me? Like, that we should maybe create more of a culture of, like, educating men and women about just how to create... It doesn't even have to be a sex thing. It's even, like, a work thing. Like, if you go to your job and, like, they ask you to do something that it's like, dude, this isn't on my job description. You need to either pay me more or you know what I mean? That's a boundary, right? I think people are really bad at those boundaries, and that's not even a sexual one, you know? So maybe we'd be better off as a culture to teach people just how to set their boundaries and reinforce them better in general.
In tiny ways, from knocking on the door when your kid goes, I'm ready, to move the stool, to wash their hands. Knock on the door. Make them understand that that is normal. That it is normal for your own mother to ask if you're ready. Like, you know, and then when they're like, I have to go potty, and like pull their pants down, you do that in there. Like, don't do that in front of people. You don't have to show off. It's yours, you know?
Right.
If we can start from there, and if we can do it in little ways, I will get, if I keep doing these things, I'm going to get clip chimped for like the communist take of, don't let them, you know, the proletariat needs to consent to the labor of their bodies. But no, that part is true. And it's not about, it does get socioeconomic and sociopolitical, but don't take your work home. You have to pick up your kid from the daycare. How about not feeling guilty when the school calls and your kid is sick? How about asking these corporations, who, by the way, found a way to have all of us work for them and get them rich? We lost 3.7 billion in value and they gained 3.9 billion in value. Obviously it was ours and they took it. So
True.
They found a way to get you to work from home during the pandemic. They can do it now. Like, stand up for your fucking right to have consent over your body. And that means men are not born rapists. Men are not criminals. Men are not slaves to a phallus. They're just not. And we have to start with consent in boys immediately, and not about women. Have that conversation when they're like 15 or 16, but make sure that they understand consent in and out because of the value of their own person and their own body.
Yeah. Wow. Fire take. I don't know how anyone could argue with that, honestly.
I have 2 kids, and one is a boy and one is a girl, and my daughter is non-binary. I call her my non-binary because she likes toe beans. But no, I have a son and a daughter, and I'm seeing that I'm supposed to keep them safe from 2 opposing sides of the problem, where neither of them are the problem themselves, and they're being pressured by outside forces on either side that have no intention of fixing it because it's lucrative. It doesn't matter. And the bodies of men going to war and the bodies of women that they're taking their fury out on just don't matter to the people in power. They don't care. So it hurts, but I'm going to keep fighting it.
There's something about this consent thing that always that I have just been perpetually having a hard time wrapping my head around. And it's the non-zero risk of sexual assault every time that you engage in a sexual encounter. And even just in us talking, you know, it's like there's like, I feel like there's a part of, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like there's a part that there's something that's like taught to women that's kind of like, if someone starts to get physical with you at a certain point, it is actually in your better interest for your own safety to, dare I say, kind of like play into it or do what you have to do, you know, so that you could make it out of it alive. And that sucks. That's shitty. I don't really know how to wrap my mind around that. Is that just something that will kind of have to like happen forever? You know, that these things are just taught. You know, like let's say these cases that, you know, we're describing, you're getting pushed up against a car, you're getting whatever. Like these instances are probably, you know, rare across the whole population, right? But they still happen. It's still terrible, and it still happens enough that it's a problem. I don't know. Do you think we would ever get to a point where we wouldn't have to teach people how to protect themselves in these like 0.1% chance things that could happen, you know? Or do you think that there will always be a need in this society kind of to like teach men and women, like specifically women, I'd say, this thing where it's kind of like, hey, if it gets to a certain point, it's in your best safety maybe to just not fight back and just have to take it. For lack of a better way to describe that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And there are, the military police said this. And so mine was military police. That was a fucking nightmare. You know, we're the good guys and you have to have it investigated by them. You're like, oh shit, I'm fucked. But they do say that a lot, and they do say it to women a lot. And I've noticed that feminists are getting away from it. There's a part of me that says, yes, if you're too tired to fight anymore and you're just trying to survive, because that's the point I got to, that is a choice for the woman. Society needs to be kinder about that, because if you fought and started losing and you're just trying to get away with your life in the very rare ones like this, there's something else that we're missing. As a general populace, we've grown out of that quite a bit. It's in places where women's modesty is the law. Women in burqas, women in uniforms, women in the military in uniform, they're far more likely to have these very rare cases of violent sexual assault happen to them, because they're challenging someone. They're challenging something that someone believes about their own power. And so you're not going to get a psychopath like that. There's any man who goes, oh my God, that woman existed, she's wearing pants, time to go rape 10 kids. You're not going to save that asshole. There's like, and we shouldn't even care. Like, we should not mourn that we can't save that guy.
Just to clarify, you said that basically you're saying kind of like the, let's say, conservative, like Muslim men, and basically, you know, high-ranking military officials. They've already kind of got that like mindset of domination and fuck.
And they're the olds. They're the olds. Here's the beautiful part of this: young Muslim men in Afghanistan that I saw, they don't know why their sisters can't sell the vegetables. Well, they go pretend that they're one of the soldiers and ask about how you get to America, you know, and how they can be like you. Like, they don't think there's anything wrong with leaving their sister to handle money. They aren't ready to stone people to death. That's the 40 and 50-year-olds who are trying to bring back something even the 60 and 70-year-olds let go of ages ago. And they have a bigger issue, and they have a bigger cultural issue facing them. But at the same time, like, good luck getting the 12 to 15-year-olds that were there when I was there in 2012 to be on your fucking side, man. It's not going to happen. Like, I don't know what the Taliban thinks they're going to get in that, you know? But it's just like, here, I think that's the civilian populace has moved faster. I really do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
And
that was that 16-year-old. I mean, he grew up technically under America in a way, you know, like
American rule.
in America. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, but really though, I mean, American rule. That's what it was, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of the totally separate topic, but that's the thing that burns me up the most about that is like obviously maybe we probably shouldn't have started that whole debacle, but maybe we should have stuck around to like finish that harder. I just one of my favorite photos that I saw, the favorite because it was horrifying photos that I saw last year was you know, there was a department store, you know, and there's just women's faces in dress gowns and all kinds of stuff plastered against the wall. And then there's a dude with a 50-foot paint pole painting over it. And the picture was taken halfway through him painting over it. So half of it is completely fresh paint. The other half is, you know, the pictures of the women. And he's just sitting there in the middle, churning it up. How the fuck did we think that was okay? If we go fight, how can we say that we ever fight for democracy and then do that? Terrible call.
And they can do as they choose according to their culture. And we have every right to say this is not our culture and we're gonna dip. But what I don't understand is why we didn't. I get not every person in Afghanistan. I understand why people would like knee-jerk reaction that, but my emotions about the entire situation is we have room for them. They're hardworking people. They're wonderful people. Everybody who doesn't want to live under the Taliban, let's like yeet them over here.
Yep. We'll take every doctor, every engineer. We'll take every waiter you have, and we'll bring them over here. So I live in San Diego, which I'm sure obviously you know is a very big military city. So in the apartment complex that I live in, the person who runs the apartment complex actually took in 7 families from Kabul.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And it was they're literally like the nicest people I've ever met. They're like it's just it's like so refreshing. Like it's really interesting. It's like their kids like play in the street. I'm like, I remember playing in the street when I was a kid. I'm like, kids don't do that anymore. Like I see their kids playing, you know, and their kids are just so nice. Like in this, when I talked to I was like working on my car the other day, and one of the guys came up and just trying to shoot the shit. You know, he didn't speak very much English or anything, but it was just crazy talking to him, just like, where'd you come from? Oh, I came from Kabul. Holy shit. And they literally, I didn't even put it together. They literally moved in the month after, you know, it fell. Yeah, just
imagine. And here's the thing I want people to see about why I love the Afghan people so much. Imagine you only have 1 or 2 friends that you even recognize who taught you the portions of this second language, or actually no, when it comes to Afghan people, English is about their 3rd to 4th language, because they usually the Pashtun, Dari, like they're so literate and they can speak so many languages. So they go, this is like their 4th language by the time they get to you, and they know you're there, but then you get off the plane and you're like, I'm going to go help more. And you know that that's their job. And the plane closes and then you never see that person again. You come here, people who look exactly like your friend because of the way they're dressed, those people, you know, you kind of trust them because you know that they're the ones, it's their plane, they're the ones who are bringing you over here, but you never see your friend again. You don't know the language and how quickly people speak it here, because in Afghanistan, we slow way down and they slow way down, you know, but we're all chattering away. You don't know what all these lights and sounds and sirens and roads and cars are even about. You have a very loud marketplace at home, but there's a buzz to it. And you have modern appliances and you've never dreamed that they can be this overwhelming and this chaotic. And you've got to go out there and find a job. We brought you here to safety, but go get a job. And then they do. They do. And they have traditional families. They go home, the wife, the babies, you know, the wife opens a tailor shop, like all the things conservatives should love. That is the Afghan people. And I cannot understand why they don't want them here.
Yeah, you do.
Talk about the voters.
It's because they're not white.
Talk about the voters you have. I know. It's
God,
disgusting.
It's disgusting. Yeah.
I would lose elections. I would lose elections to Republicans to have Afghan people who come here to America, who believe in what we believe in and dignity, be the real traditional right wing. I would. Yeah.
I mean, my girlfriend's Mexican, and she was definitely born here, grew up in Mexico for 10 years, went back and forth for, you know, obscene amount of time. You know, I definitely would say she's more Mexican than American. And it's the same thing, you know? Like, they just have such a deep respect for culture and hard work, and it's something that white people don't understand, honestly. And it frustrates the shit out of me. Like,
if the Taliban's gonna kill them, they're on our side.
Dude,
trust me on that.
Dude, exactly. Like, I'm from West Virginia originally, like, and it just pisses me off, you know? Like, I have tons of family back home, you know, from Moundsville, West Virginia, you know? And it's just some backwater bullshit, you know, population 6,000 city in America. And it's just rough. You guys are just ignorant as fuck, you know? Bottom line.
And they would get along with the average Afghan family so much. Like, I would too. It's just that we would be kind of arm's length because we don't want to offend one another. But Afghan families that the Taliban has on a kill list, being here, oh man, the average Republican would just love them so much. Although some of them wouldn't, because some Afghan people can definitely outclass some of our trashier extremist right-wing elements for sure.
I mean, it happens.
Not trying to be mean.
Yeah. It's a third world country too, you know. I mean, they're going to have their extreme end is obviously going to be more extreme than our extreme end, you know. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight for their middle ground, you know.
Yep.
I feel that. I got to go here in the next like 7 minutes.
Okay.
Wow, this has been a really awesome conversation. I really appreciate you. This has been really enlightening for me personally. I really appreciate it.
Oh. I'm glad. That's kind of humbling. Thank you. I really appreciate that I didn't have to wait. That's not what I'm saying or anything. Like, I really appreciate the conversation entirely. That was great.
I really want to try to de-escalate some of these Twitch conversations because I think that there are always little nuggets of gold in these debates. Have you seen the recent Debate Bro versus it was Debate Bro versus YouTube essayist video that came out? It's kind of been picking up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. It's been linked to the Discord, Oleg's Discord. I am going to get to it. I have just been busy, and I think Vosh has great takes, but sometimes these bigger streamers just annoy. Like, the earworm isn't them. The earworm is my annoyance.
I mean, that's okay though. I mean, I agree though. I think Vosh definitely can be annoying sometimes. As much as I probably agree, if we sat down at a bar and talked, we'd probably agree on 99% of the topics. But just the way that he goes about them, not to sound like a broken record, I just think it's really bad.
Well, Destiny going, let's not tell women that they have to be awkward and they can't say anything because men need to hear something. And then Arsler, it's not men, it's women. Women are responsible for these. And then leaning towards women are responsible for men's behaviors. Like, how did he get from a decent, poorly done take to insanity?
Yeah, also, I mean, for real. And, like, we don't even have to get into that too much, but, like, if the man is already, you know, if the man is breaking the boundary so hard that he's slipping the condom off in the middle of having sex, like, if my homie told me that, I'd be like, dude, you are a sack of shit. Like, period. That is just not remotely appropriate in any world that we live in. You know what I mean? That any remote of defending that at all is just stupid. It's ridiculous.
Well, and I know this might just be anecdotal, but I've heard a lot of men talk about it, and it's happened to me once. Somebody said, well, what about when the condom breaks? That is so painful. I don't think there's any woman who's running and screaming for her life when that happens, because you're going to try to finish and you're going to try to let him feel better, because I have seen that happen. And you do not want to leave. You want to try to make it better between the two of you, because that was horrible and he is in a world of pain. And you're like trying to like, oh, I'm so sorry it broke, you know? The stupid things that happened over that consent discourse were ridiculous.
Yeah.
But look what came out of it.
Beautiful. I got to meet someone new on the internet and have a nice conversation, learn some things. Have some things for me to research. I got some cool things that I've been writing down that I'm going to do a little more research on, and I'm probably going to turn this into a YouTube video. I hope you don't mind.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I'm probably I'll front end on it with some of this research that I'm going to look into and follow it up with our conversation. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, I would love to speak to you anytime as well. Like, even if it's not for your video or something.
Sure.
This has been one of the most productive conversations. Like, hearing you say some of the things from men, and like hearing men's thought processes and what society is doing to them is incredibly important to me, because this is not your fault at all. And I want to help you fight it. So.
Likewise. For women.
Awesome.
And moms.
We've got this, man. We've got this shit. We can do it.
Would you like to shout out any of your social media platforms or anything like that before we?
Oh,
before
yeah.
We go?
If people want to see how I can get taken out of context, and then like show my face to like show people I'm saying the exact same thing, and this is how I said it online, you can follow me at a wielder 26, and that's on Twitter. I don't really have a stream, but I mod for Olake, and if you ever want to be spicy and have some fun, Olake TV on Twitch and Olake on YouTube. I mod there, and that's a lot of fun as well, and you can come pick on me. So
Nice. Hey, everybody, go sub to Olake. His YouTube videos are pretty nice. I like the way he puts them together most of the time, and his takes are pretty good. And I like his voice.
it's funny. I have some clips coming. That are going to make him sound like a crazy person. So get ready for those.
Oh, very, very spicy clipping over here, huh?
Oh yeah.
Well.
I'm doing it on purpose. Don't tell him.
Your secret.
All right, gotcha.
Well, thank you so much for the conversation. Have a lovely rest of your day, okay?
And you as well, Will. Have a great day.
Bye.